Hello, everybody. My name is Loyola Rankin. I am Navajo, joining you from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I am Meadow people, born for the Mexican people. My grandfather was Two Rivers Flow Together, and my paternal grandfather was Mexican. I'm here to talk to you about rest. This is a relatively new thing that I had heard about. Strangely enough, on an Instagram reel, and I was really surprised about it. Honestly, it was like 11 o'clock at night, and you're just scrolling through reels on Instagram, as it were. Uh, and this video came up, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I find I love to rest. Like, that's my favorite thing to do. I'm one of those people that enjoy doing nothing. And so I thought here at the end of the semester, after finals had gone through and everything, that we would talk a little bit about rest. I do have some slides for you. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Oh, there it is. Sorry, you switch over from like Teams and you lose everything. Okay, so 6 different types of rest. We're going to be going through each of them together. And of course, the chat function is open, so feel free to utilize the chat if you should like. Okay, so first off, what is rest? What is this concept? And you may be equating rest with sleep, which is true. You can rest and you can sleep. Um, and you do need an equal restoration in other areas of your life. So when you talk about sleep and rest, when you use them interchangeably, you're actually talking about physical sleep, physical rest. And to share a little bit about myself, I actually took a sleep class in undergrad. Yeah, you heard that right, a sleep course in undergrad. So we learned about why people sleep. And I don't know if you've ever thought about that, but why do you need to sleep? And it was a 16-week long course, through various studies, scientific, and, giant societies and conferences around sleep. And the big thing we learned from why people sleep is because we're tired. That's the only reason that they can scientifically prove as to why we sleep. I'm really interested in reading this book I found at an airport bookstore around animals and sleep. So that is something that's very interesting to me. And I kind of want to talk a little bit more about what it is that we need as a human being. So that's the big thing of it, right? Why do we need to sleep? Because we're tired is essentially the answer. And the same thing goes with the different types of rest, is what we're going to be talking about. So we have the physical, the mental, the emotional, sensory, social, and creative. So first off, physical. So we talk about physical rest. We know a little bit more about this. I think we're more familiar with the different types of physical rest. But what I learned during my research is that there is a passive component to rest and an active component to physical rest. So passive is when you have high quality sleep. That's when you are unconscious, you're laying in your bed or wherever on the couch, you're just relaxing. It's very passive. There is the active component of sleep, of doing activities that help you sleep. So these are things like stretching, yoga, massage therapy. If you've ever had a massage, either like in, the chairs at the mall, or if you've gone to a masseuse, you will find sometimes you'll start nodding off and you'll start to fall asleep. That is one of the components of rest inside the body, your physical muscles, the strain of just carrying yourself throughout the day, that takes up energy. And so therefore you become tired. We all know this. And so it's very important to have equal amounts of the passive component and the active component. so you can engage in high quality rest. One of the things we learned inside of the course I was talking about from undergrad was the different types of sleep. So there's actually, well, not types, I shouldn't say that, I should say stages. So there are different stages to sleep. You actually have 4 stages, and then the very last stage is called the REM sleep, REM sleep. So what we learned in my sleep course is that throughout the night, your body actually drops down through the different stages and then enters REM sleep. And this is when you actually have rapid eye movement. That's what actually REM stands for. So I'm going to try and demonstrate on the camera a little bit. And you might have noticed when you see someone else sleep, their eyes move while their eyelids are closed. So it'll look something like this. I don't think I'm doing it right, but basically your eye is like moving underneath your eyelid. And so that's when you know someone has entered into REM sleep. That is the deepest form of sleep there is, and it's the most rejuvenating, apparently. That's when you have your dreams. That's when you have the mind completely unconscious. This is also when you enter into body paralysis. So if you've ever woken up and you're like, oh, I can't move. Oh no, oh shoot, what's going on? I can't move. That is actually your body going from REM sleep immediately to waking up. So there's actually supposed to be a gradual form of going down into REM and then going back up throughout the night. And so when you go down into REM slowly and then shoot back up into consciousness, you actually still feel that paralysis of your body. And that's kind of where the REM sleep happens. It's like when you go shoot back up, that's when your body is in paralysis mode. Some people who are unable to enter into REM sleep, like let's say they go down to stage 3, back up to stage 2, down to 4, back up to wake, they're actually not getting a lot of rest. And so you might need to do like sleep studies. You can also look into like sleep apnea machines. Those are the ones that they put like that oxygen mask on you. And it's not simply because of like, something's wrong. It's just that sometimes genetically our bodies are weird. There's no other way to say it. Your body gets weird sometimes. You get a deviated septum, you can't sleep, you're not getting enough oxygen. So those are different types of things that impact physical rest. So if you were waking up and you're like, dang, I'm more tired than when I went to sleep, you probably didn't get into REM sleep. And there are different reasons for that, of course. And most common, I think, is when people try to take, what is it called? The one that helps you sleep. I forget that. Don't tell my professor. I forgot which one helps you sleep. But that medication, right? And then you're like, wow, yeah. Thank you, Samantha. Melatonin. Thank you. Oh my God, you saved me. So yeah, the melatonin, they'll take that to try and help them sleep, but it doesn't go all the way down into REM sleep. It just knocks you unconscious. So there's different forms of sleep sciences out there. One of the big things you can do is make sure you have a completely dark space when you are in a sleep mode so that you can wear an eye mask or you can have completely blackout curtains. I know for those of us that have worked night shifts, it's very hard to fit into that schedule of quality sleep. So definitely try to use different methods to completely dark out your space while you're sleeping. Track your sleep habits if possible. If you are finding you're waking up throughout the night, or if you find that you're waking up more tired than when you went to sleep, it's always helpful to have a sleep journal to track any time you kind of like doze off. So if you're taking naps throughout the day, if you are, finding you're tired during certain times of the hour, that's definitely helpful to help track like what is going to be high quality for you later on. There are also now devices you can wear that track your sleep methods when you're sleeping. So like how many times you enter into REM. Those are pretty pricey, I'm not gonna lie, but if it is something that you're interested in, highly recommend them. They're pretty cool. And then, of course, what activities are you doing to rest? So light activities upon waking, that could be stretching, that could be yoga, some small activities before bed, just preparing your body to ease and to relax into it. Those are very helpful in finding a good, restful experience for yourself. Okay, so mental rest. So this is a big one for our academics out there, for our students. Mental rest is huge. The idea of mental rest isn't fairly new, but it's still more new than like physical rest. We all know physically you have to rest. But mental rest is this idea of finding relaxation and calmness that allows your mind to unwind and recover from mental exertion. Um, this could be your classes. This could be a hardcore study session. This could be, something you're really engaged with. If you like, murder mystery movies and you have to pay attention, you could find like you're mentally tired after an experience like that. And you're just like, whoa, I just feel so dizzy. Like I just need to lay down. Um, that's the type of mental rest we're talking about in this space. So what mental unrest, I don't know if that's right, can feel like is like you're forgetful. You forget things, or you can't calm your mind, or you're constantly zoning out. And you're just like, wait, what did you say? I wasn't paying attention. I just zoned out. Um, or repetitive action. If you find yourself like repeating words and you're like, I don't know, the thing, the thing, the thing, the thingy, the thingy. And people are like, what are you talking about? And you're like, the thingy. I think all of our moms have done that. We may have done that too. That is your mind telling you you need to mentally rest. Um, there are a lot of different ways. Every mind is different, every body is different. So if these aren't resonating with you, that is fine. We can look at different methods that might support you in your rest. The big one is scheduling breaks throughout the day. Set time throughout for a short break, a short walk if you want to take a time to eat a snack, like sit outside and eat a snack, get some sun. Always try to have activities where your mind can take a break and you're just not focusing on one specific thing. I know in certain situations it might be more desirable to sit and get it done. You know what I mean? If you have like hyperfixation, or if you have ADHD, it could be difficult to be like, all right, I'm going to stop this project right now and I need to take a break. I need to take a walk. But give it a chance, give it a try, like see what is an option to help you have your mind rest throughout the day. You're running marathons when you do need to take a rest from your mental state. Journaling is a big one. I'm not a fan of journaling personally. I think it was something in like the 90s. If you are also a millennial, there was always like, someone's gonna read your diary. And I'm like, oh my God, for real? And then it would be like a commercial for like, I don't know, a journal with a lock on it. And I was like, oh, they initiated all this stress in me that someone's gonna read my work, and like no one's gonna read it. Like if I'm being real with myself, no one's gonna read my journal. But that stress remains. But still try to journal, throughout the day. It doesn't need to be something very specific you talk about. I think that was another thing that with journaling, you're like, I need to write something profound. And it's like, no, you really don't. All you need to write down is just things that are coming to mind. Like, hey, I saw like an almond that looked like a bug and it scared me. Like, why is that in my mind? I don't know, but I need to get it out there. So definitely try writing things down. You don't actually have to keep them. You can just write it on a post-it note, just take some notes, scribble down what's going on in your mind and toss it, throw it away if you don't want to keep it. That's perfectly fine too. The idea is to calm the mind. Don't get stuck up here and just let it out, get it out, and then alleviate some of that pressure. It's like a pressure valve, letting some things go. Another thing is to engage in mindless activity. Just sit and engage in something that you find as a mindless activity. This could be knitting, this could be crocheting. If you're really into word searches, like, I have mine right here, actually. I do one a day. Um, and that's just like time for your mind to like get off the fast pace and get into like the slow lane. Like I know I'm using a lot of metaphors, but that's usually what helps me. So instead of being like on the freeway the whole time, you're like, hey, you know what? We're gonna take a leisurely stroll along a dirt road. Like let's just, search for some words. Like we're not trying to do anything. We're just trying to calm the mind a little bit. And you'll notice that I have it right next to my work desk, which I thought was going to be very stressful for myself. And I was like, it's there, you got to finish it. And I'm like, I actually don't find it that stressful. When I find that I need to take a mental break from the work I'm doing, I'm like, all right, let's look up 2 words and just take some time and kind of like search through and like find words. It's just helpful. It calms the mind, and then I can get back into what I need to do. So those are the type of mind activities you can do, things that you can take a break. It's very helpful to not overtax your mental state. Um, there's a lot that could happen if your mind is in constant stress. It's not good for your body. It's not good for your emotions. It's actually really bad for your memory as well. So that was another thing we learned in my sleep class, was that anything you learn 30 minutes before you fall asleep is not going to get stored into long-term memory, which is really interesting. Because like we learned it in college, and so they would say like, oh, you would have these cram sessions, right, the night before. You'd be studying, study, and then you'd go to sleep immediately. You're not going to remember things from the past 30 minutes after you fell asleep, and it's very tricky that way. So your body actually and your mind needs time to like let things sink in. So you're supposed to wait like 15 to 30 minutes after you study, after you read something very important, and then you can fall asleep. It has a better chance of sinking in into your mind. So there's a lot of things that the body and the mind just can't do. I mean, of course, it's different for everybody, but sometimes it's difficult to even process what's going on in those spaces. So the other thing we want to talk about is emotional rest. This is the ability to be real and authentically yourself. This one is pretty crucial in the college experience. One of the things that we hear a lot from students is that they might not find people who can relate to them, or could share similar experiences with them, or they won't be able to be fully themselves. And that can lead to emotional unrest. You want to find, those spaces where you can be real, you can be authentic, you'll be cared about and supported no matter what you do. And so this is oftentimes why Native American scholars who go off to college will feel isolated, is that they can't be authentically themselves inside these spaces. And so they finally get home and, for like a holiday break or winter break or for whatever reason, and all of a sudden it's like, God, I can rest. I feel so much better. And so it's that emotional rest that you're seeking too in a lot of these situations. And sometimes people think of it as like it's a physical rest, it's a mental rest, which is true. That could all be tied up into these things. None of these are stagnant by themselves. But it could be that emotional rest you're feeling. It really could. So definitely think about that as you make your way through your future academic career, right? Because academia is not very well suited to basically non-whites. Um, and that might be some of the things that come up for you inside of your field of study, your work, whatever it is that you're deciding to do as a scholar. It could be that you feel emotionally unrested. So definitely think about places that you feel emotional rest. The idea when you feel unrest in this area is that you're suppressing feelings, you have emotional burdens, you're carrying things around. This could also formulate in going numb, emotionally numb. So if you've ever felt that way, it could be because you're like not rested emotionally. The other thing that comes up for this too is people pleasing. So if you're constantly like, I will please this other person to detriment of myself, that is a problem. You are not emotionally rested. Um, so a couple of things you can do to get emotional rest is make sure you have the phrase at capacity. This means you're done. Like, I'm not doing anything else. I'm at capacity. Yes, I have time. Yes, I have, all the X, Y, and Z resources and materials to do said thing, but I'm at capacity. I'm not going to do it. And that's perfectly acceptable, honestly. A lot of times when I ask people for a favor or for something, I was like, can you do this? Or are you at capacity? And, do you have time, interest, capacity to do this thing? And they can have time, they can have interest, but if they're at capacity, don't do it. Like, don't even bother. This is when you get into that area of like, I cannot engage. And that is okay. That is perfectly fine. This is also where that term boundary comes into. So if you are setting boundaries, this is what you're talking about. Like, I am at capacity emotionally. This is my boundary. I don't want to cross it. Perfectly fine. That is entirely your call. The other thing you can do is take emotional inventory. Identify people that can be emotionally draining and emotionally enriching, and find a balance that works for you. So definitely think about how you with certain people, and how they respond. You know what I mean? Like, you all have that person in their life that just like, I gotta tell you something immediately. Let me give you all the tea. You're like, whoa, 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 what's going on? And that fight or flight mode comes up, and you're like, tell me what's going on. And they're like, oh, it was just something like minuscule. But every conversation is that way. And you're like, oh my God, you're just shooting my emotions like into the stratosphere. Like, calm down. It wasn't that big of a deal. So definitely think about your relationships. Think about those people that are, who drain you, and then those who like fill your battery, basically. And it's just like they say the kindest things, you know what I mean? And like for me, it's usually like people at the library. Librarians are usually very sweet and very kind, and they're like just so helpful. Um, or like when an older woman working at a diner calls you hun, I'm like, oh, that feels so good. And that could be that emotional enrichment part that you feel, and that's okay, and that's great. And so definitely think about those things in those situations when you need that fulfillment. um and then the other thing too, this one's kind of hard for different people, is to be vulnerable. um Being yourself in certain situations can be extremely vulnerable, and that can be scary, and that is totally okay. Allowing yourself to be more vulnerable to different spaces allows you to be real and authentic and to express yourself. And we've had situations where we've gotten shut down for that. High school. But definitely keep trying. Keep trying. You will find your people, and you'll find that community that supports you and allows you to be authentically yourself. So definitely be vulnerable in these spaces. I've had a lot of people who, will be like, I'm doing great, I'm doing fine. And I'm like, I'm doing terrible. Like, I do not like this at all. And they're like, me too, I'm not doing well. And I'm like, I don't think so. And that candor allows other people to be like authentically themselves too. Like, I'm not having a good time. And I'm like, good, you shouldn't, because this is terrible. All right, so moving on to sensory rest. This one is very common for me. I didn't realize it had a name. But sensory rest is around the constant influx of stimulation. This could be anything. It could be lights, sounds, textures, tastes. Uh, Lack of a controlled environment usually, well, this is when it will come up. So I don't know if you've ever had that experience of like, I don't want anything touching me right now, I don't like it. That is sensory overload. I didn't realize that that was a thing. I used to call it getting fussy. um So we'd go out with my siblings and watch a movie, go to dinner, whatever. And then I'd start to get fussy. And, I would call it that because I would think of like little babies, right? When they're like kicking off their shoes and they're like, I don't want to wear shoes. I don't want to wear socks. Um, and that's that sensory overload. You're getting too much information, and the grating feeling that will start to come up. And it's good to know when those things are coming for you. It's an irritability, agitation, and usually it's as the day progresses. Or like if you're at let's say you're out with friends, you guys go to a concert, and like by the time the main hits the stage, you're like, I hate everybody here. You are in sensory overload. And so you just need to take yourself apart, remove yourself, like calm the nerves. And that's one of the crazy things about being human beings, is that we have nerve endings like everywhere on our bodies. So like you can feel like the tag at the back of your throat, or I could feel the headphones like pushing down on my scalp. um but I don't focus on those things, but they're still there. Like my body is still receiving that information. So when you go into sensory overload, you might not even realize it's happening. um so the idea here is to um be constantly aware of like when you're reaching that limit before it becomes too much for you. So there's a couple of things. Sensory deprivation therapy is one. There's a couple of sensory deprivation tanks. This is when you go into that like little pool and you just float. Like it's um, crazy the amount of science that comes out where it's just like humans like to float. It's weird. Like we don't know why that is, but we like to float. And I think it's just because, that sensory deprivation, like you're not feeling anything like against you. So it's helpful. Um, there's a lot of science around it, like just in a pool, just yourself, you just floating there. It's nice. If you need to like book a hotel for that, I would recommend it, especially if you're getting to that huge point of like, I am very irritable and I know it's coming. Quietness. This one can be tough, just depending on where you are and where you live. It doesn't have to be dead silent. It can be like a park or a room at a library or on campus, a hotel room. Like you can still hear other things, but you're not forcing noise to occur, and noise is not actively happening. So like you wouldn't do this at a construction site, you know what I mean? Like you want something that just to sit and silence and recharge. That is most helpful. Sometimes it's like getting in your car. I think a lot of people experience this too when they get home from work or travel and they shut off the car, and you just sit in your car for like 15 minutes and you just sit there. No music, no nothing. You're not on your phone. And that's literally your body being like, I need sensory rest. This will happen especially when you're driving, because again, you're feeling everything, you're aware of everything, you're looking, you're watching, you're being very active in your driving. So after a while, your body is just like, I just need to rest. I just need to sit here and do nothing for like 15 minutes. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. The big thing here on the last one is to consider the fabrics you're wearing. If you find that you get your sensory issue, that not issues, excuse me. Geez, that was rude, Loyola. If you find that you're hitting that sensory overload quickly, it could be around the fabrics you're wearing. Consider the different types of fabric. If you don't like things, constricting or like pressing on your skin, stay away from the spandex, stay away from like the weave and blends. If you do like those things, maybe you like lean into them a little bit more. And it's okay. Your likes and interests will change and your body's needs will change. So definitely think about the different types of fabrics. And especially how they're cleaned is the big thing too. Like I found this whole thing around fabric softener. Like I didn't realize it was like, it's just a chemical that's very like layered on your clothes. And there's a whole thing where you're not supposed to put fabric softener on children's clothes. And it's like not like a health hazard, but like it's a fire hazard. Well, I guess that's a health hazard. Um, but yeah, so like just consider like things like that too, because you might not even be aware of how much sensory overload that is giving you. So yeah, so definitely think about the different types of fabrics you're wearing and your socks. Invest in good socks, guys. Like socks are a big thing for me, like for real. Buy the good socks. Do not buy the plastic socks. Like, please wear good socks. Like, it's helped so much. It's crazy. Alrighty, so social rest. Oh, this one was interesting to research. So social rest here, it really doesn't mean social isolation. That was one thing I did get wrong. So social rest is really when you are giving yourself um, a refreshing sense of life, a refreshing sense of living experiences fuller than when you started. You know what I mean? Um, these are the social connectedness you need to relax and rejuvenate. You know what I mean? Like my mom would always talk about like all the cousins coming over and our house would be loud and chaotic. And she would just sit there and like look at us and rest. And I was like, aren't you mad? Like we're making a huge mess. And she was like, no, not really. I feel rejuvenated. Like seeing children play, you know what I mean? Like it gives you that sense of like, oh yeah, I feel good. Um, Social rest provides a feeling of belonging. So anytime you feel that sense of belonging, togetherness, this can actually help prevent like physical things like cancer, heart disease, while providing purpose and pleasure and love in life. A big thing too is like powwows. You know what I mean? Like anytime you go to a powwow, and you don't even have to be inside the circle dancing, you can just watch people dance, and you're like, I feel good. This feels real good. And that's that social rest, you know what I mean? And that's kind of where that sensory and social rest might war with each other a little bit. But definitely keep in mind that you are recharging one, but the other one might be depleting. So keep that in mind when you go into these situations. When you feel tired, socially tired, this could be feelings of being isolated or alone. Um, Not alone in terms of like body physically near me, but you're not feeling connected to somebody. This could show up in like skipping social events. That could be a big thing. Short temper, anxiety around socializing, feeling overwhelmed or drained. Those are all signs of being socially unrested. So definitely think about that when you are considering plans, when you're considering going to places. It could be that you're so tired of like socially tired that you don't want to socialize. And that's okay. Like we're each different in our own experiences in our bodies. So consider what is quality time for you. So a big thing here is to find that person you love, someone who like, just whatever it could be, friend, family, partner, and engage in quality time together. Just no phones, just you and that person, just hitting it off, just doing your thing. And it doesn't have to be very long either. It could be 30 minutes, it could be an hour. Identifying community, finding that space that really hits your multiple identity markers is very helpful. So you could be, let's say, for example, you're a big, I don't know, The Office fan. You love The Office. You heard they're coming out with a part two. And so there's a club at your college that you go and you guys watch The Office. And you're like, yeah, that's great. I love this. But your college doesn't have anything for your Native American identity. And so now you're feeling unrested because that part of your identity is not being met. That can happen. Same thing if you're in the LGBTQ2S plus community. It could be that, that part of your identity is not being met and you're not being social and finding that community in that space. So definitely think about these things if you're feeling socially unrested. And then, of course, the last one is understanding your social battery. We are all different types of people, extroverts, introverts. It's a spectrum, you know what I mean? Where you get your energy from is different for everybody. Do you get your energy from being in different places? Do you get it from being alone? Um, Understanding your social battery is very critical. Like for me, I am 100% an extrovert. Sorry, introvert. After this, I'm gonna lay down. Like, even though we're not like engaging with one another in the like traditional sense, I'm still like exerting a lot of energy with this presentation. So after this, yeah, heck yeah, I'm gonna lay down. So keep that in mind of what you need and plan around that. You know what I mean? If you're going out with friends, maybe after that you just have tacos at home by yourself and you recharge your battery, you know, those types of things. All righty. So creative rest. This one was surprising for me too. This one I hadn't really heard of, but experiences when you are able to appreciate beauty. This is awakens the sense of awe and wonder. So anytime you're going through life and it feels very dour, like you're feeling like, I don't know, it's not all that special, you might be feeling creatively uh, unrested. So it's time to find instances of beauty um, that you can engage in. Creative unrest can look like procrastination, um, unreasonable self doubt. Not that there's a reasonable self doubt, but unreasonable self doubt, feelings of dread around your work or responsibilities, physically fatigue. Like it could be that you are physically tired and no amount of sleep is helping. And so you find out that you're actually not physically tired, you're creatively tired. So think of things in which this can happen. There's a lot of different experiences. The big thing here is to find experiences that you can find beautiful. Sunsets, sunrises, go to a museum, take a walk at a botanic garden, do touristy experiences in your local area, you know, things of that nature to really recharge that creativity. Meditation is a big one. I know some people aren't a fan of meditation practices, but just having the time to sit with your body and engage with your own self, it can be very rejuvenating in a lot of ways. So meditation practices can help, just depending on how you know you relate to it. Engage with other creators. So finding a community of people who also do things that you like to do and engage with them. And so, you know, in a digital era, it doesn't even have to be a physical meetup. So my Instagram reels are, you know, always suggesting like plants and gardeners, and I can't keep honestly a succulent alive. Like that's really sad because I live in Albuquerque in the desert, and I'm like, this should be no problem, but I don't know, they just die on me, and I'm like, that's not cool. But I have a bunch of reels that are all about gardening and I love them. And I'm like, oh, this is me engaging with my community. Like, I'm not going to be able to do this because I'm not going to grow to ficus because I can't, and that's okay. But I could see someone do it and like, that's perfectly great. So that's that area of creative rest that you might need as well. So if you do find yourself scrolling on Instagram through your reels and the algorithm's taking you to these creators, that might be the rest that you need. Um, and sometimes, you know, people are like, don't be glued to your phone. But I'm like, I'm engaging with my community. See, they're on Instagram. So it's good and bad, you know, definitely find that balance of like how much you want to engage with others. And what works for you, what recharges your battery is always, always the point. All right, surprise! It's not really a surprise, but it's a surprise. There's actually a rest number 7. I said 6, but there's 7. All my research shows 7. And this is spiritual rest. I was surprised about this one too. Spiritual rest relates to your fundamental need for belonging and understanding life's purpose. Why are we here? Why do I have cognizance? Why can I communicate with my dog? You know what I mean? Like that understanding of the spiritual rest. If you find that you feel your life doesn't have a purpose, it's not going anywhere, you know, you're not doing things that are actively engaging, you know, that could be a sign of spiritual rest. And different people have different takes. I'm not here to preach on any one particular type of religion, but this is that spiritual element, right? A lot of Native American tribal nations have different methodologies, different approaches to this unrest feeling. Being Navajo, my whole thing is like, have a ceremony. Like, if you are feeling that unrest, if you're not feeling spiritually connected, have a ceremony. Like, it's totally okay to have a prayer for prayer's sake. That's okay. Um, One of these things could be like finding purpose through your religious practice, through prayer, whatever that looks like for you. Perfect. Great. Honestly. Awesome. Um, it could look like creating a personal mantra that can help you navigate feelings of this life, space and experience of like, I give myself permission to be happy. That's a mantra. You can say it to yourself while you're meditating, and it could recharge your spiritual rest. It could recharge your creative rest that you need. Spending time in nature. This is always a good one. Botanical gardens, walks, hikes. Spending time in nature can really revitalize that spiritual need for rest. So yeah, definitely consider the different types of rests available to you. All right, so we're going to go into an activity. This is called How Rested Are You? And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. All righty, everybody. Thank you so much for your time. We deeply appreciate it. The event evaluation is there in the chat. Please complete it in order to be counted as having attended. And I will also be raffling off some Amazon gift cards. I will send out the winners notifications tomorrow. I think about tomorrow about 11, we'll have the interviews, the winners selected. So definitely feel free to submit the event evaluation as well.